now moved on to the 13-week pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, which is basically like an extended program for people who ran out of benefits. But those benefits are going to expire on December 26th. And the job market is really no friendlier. According to research from the Economic Policy Institute, there are 2 job seekers for every job opening in the country. That means that for every 20 workers who are counted as unemployed, there are only 10 jobs for them. So that means really no matter how hard they try, there are no jobs for 6.6 million unemployed workers. It's very tough. So for people who can get unemployed benefits, navigating the system is still really tricky. People have a lot of questions, and there are a lot of quirks in the system as well. In my reporting, I've spoken to a lot of people who qualified for benefits but couldn't access them for a variety of reasons, or were left out of benefits erroneously or because they don't qualify. A lot of the time, sort of in the course of speaking to these people, I want to give people direct answers or help, but I don't personally have that. So I thought it would be useful today to have someone who really does have all, or at least most of the answers about unemployment. His name is Michael Bernick. He's the former director of the California Employment Development Department. That's the department that in California handles unemployment. He's also a labor lawyer. We'll have him on in a moment, but I just wanted to say that please submit comments and questions you have about unemployment. Basically, we want to have an interactive scenario here where if you have a question about your application or unemployment in general, you can ask Michael and he'll be here to answer it. We do have questions already that people have submitted, and I have some sort of general questions for him, but please in the chat, ask away. I'll get him on now. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Excellent, Caroline. Good to be here.
Would you mind introducing yourself first?
Well, I am an attorney here in San Francisco in the employment field with the Duane Morris Law Firm. I previously, as you mentioned, was the head of our state employment development department. I've been involved now in employment and the unemployment system now for over 40 years, so I've seen a lot. And this certainly is a unprecedented time in terms of employment generally, but the unemployment system in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been very helpful, obviously, in my reporting at KTVU and everyone. I feel like you're the go-to guy these days for unemployment questions. So really happy to have you on. So I just have a couple questions to sort of lay out the landscape and give people a basic idea of what's happening. So first of all, how long generally can people have unemployment benefits and when are they set to expire?
Carolyn, there are 2 forms of unemployment today. There's what's known as regular unemployment. That's for basically anyone who's been an employee or a W-2 worker. And those people can now, with the, as you mentioned, there are various federal extensions, can collect up to 59 weeks. In normal times, unemployment is generally limited to 26 weeks. But with the federal extensions, you can now, if you're on regular UI, collect up to 59 weeks. So basically, if you started in March or April, you're able to collect really through April or May of next year. The other form of unemployment assistance is known as pandemic unemployment assistance. This is the unemployment assistance that independent contractors are receiving. Now, traditionally, independent contractors don't receive unemployment insurance, but under the CARES Act, passed in March, they established a new program, this PUA program. Those people are able to collect through, basically, it ends December 26th. So that program is one that's time limited, at least at this point. Congress can change that when they come back after Thanksgiving and extend it. But at this point, the pandemic unemployment assistance is structured to end December 26th. So we have those two programs, one that's regular UI, 59 weeks, the other pandemic unemployment assistance ends December 26th.
Right. And yeah, that December 26th date is a really sort of horrible cutoff in terms of a lot of people are going to be, millions and millions of people basically are going to be cut off from benefits then.
Well, we estimate here, or it's been estimated by the Cal Policy Lab, that we're looking at about 750,000 here in California. But again, I think there's a good chance that Congress will take some action, though it won't be until December, so it may come down to the wire. But I think there's still a good chance.
Definitely. And I'm curious, do you anticipate that people will continue to file claims as the pandemic stretches on? And if so, how many? I mean, in the last week in the whole country, over 1 million new people did file claims. So what do you think is the trajectory of this? Like, how do you think this is all going to pan out down the line?
Well, you're right. This past week, just here in California, we had over 150,000 new regular UI claims. That's despite all the unemployment. So far, we had new claims of over 150,000, and under the pandemic unemployment assistance, we had over 30,000 new claims. So people are continuing to file claims. My sense is that two dynamics are in play. One, companies that furloughed workers finally have decided they can't keep them on furlough, that there's no clear path, at least for the next couple months, and these furloughs are moving into layoffs. And two, some of the workers brought back in July when our California economy did begin to open up. Now, as we lock down, they're being laid off again. So it's not a good situation, to say the least, but that's what I see as the dynamics, and we're likely to continue to see, especially with the lockdowns announced this week, we're likely to continue to see new claims being filed in high numbers. It's important to note that, Carolyn, prior to the pandemic, in February, we were averaging about 42,000 claims per week. So even in good economic times, unemployment claims are filed. But just this past week, we're talking about nearly 4 times as many.
Definitely. And when we talk about putting this pandemic in the context of, I don't know, I guess like the Great Recession, for example, how do claims compare now to then?
Oh, the claims are way above these are way above the numbers we saw during the Great Recession. Remember, here in California during the Great Recession, unemployment was higher than any time post-World War II, but it got up to 12.3%. We've been way above that for most of the past months. Now, this morning, the numbers for October have us, quote, down to 9.3%. But the unemployment, the number of claims filed, is way above what we've seen at any time in the post-World War II period.
Definitely. And I just want to also invite people who have questions. I see there are some people here in the comments, but if you have questions about unemployment, we'd love to hear them. I saw there was one earlier that we can get to, which was that there are a lot of people who are receiving unemployment, and also a lot of people being hired for jobs. I'm a little bit unclear about what the question's asking, but generally, in terms of the job market, does it matter? Okay, actually, I was trying to parse that, but I don't quite understand it. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move on from that. I see a question here. Do you expect to see the federal financial help packages proposed when Biden comes into office? Yeah, a lot of people have been wondering that.
Well, during the campaign, Biden has talked about this enormous stimulus, multi-trillion-dollar stimulus to build up certain business sectors. We'll have to see in terms of how the new Senate and Congress shape up. Earlier this week, he called for the immediate relief in terms of particularly unemployment assistance extensions. So we'll have to see how that shapes up. Again, there are many, very large stimulus plans he set out during the campaign. The question is, without that blue wave and with the congressional results and Senate results, how much of that will be enacted, at least in the first months?
I think it was really disappointing for a lot of people to not see another stimulus after July. When that expired in July, especially the extra $600 a week, a lot of people were really unable to make ends meet, and that struggle still continues. So I also want to ask, in general, who is left out of unemployment generally? I know, for example, undocumented workers, because they don't have W-2 forms a lot of the time, they are generally not eligible to collect unemployment. Who else? What kinds of workers or what categories of people can't get unemployment?
Yeah, when you mention undocumented workers, basically you need to have a right to work in the United States. So that's number one. Anyone who doesn't have the right to work papers isn't going to be eligible. Traditionally, independent contractors have been apart from the system, but they're drawn in with the PUA now. So basically, the coverage is extended to this group of independent contractors, and I would say also sole proprietors, small business people can also qualify under PUA.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question here. How does unemployment affect people's ability to get health insurance? Do those two benefits have a relationship?
No, they do not. They're entirely separate benefits, just as UI is separate from some of the other government benefits, such as food stamps and some of the others. They're very. UI is probably the single most complex benefits program on the state level. So there are interactions between UI and people's pension amounts and so forth. So if you get certain types of pensions, your UI is reduced, but basically the other benefits are separate from UI.
Got it. Okay. That makes total sense. And I have a clarification here about the question from earlier, which my apologies, I couldn't quite parse. The question is, when someone is hired by a company during the period where they are unemployed, does that mean the company has the funds to hire them?
Well, if someone's hired, I think there are two important points to make. One is, if you're hired, if you're unemployed, you're collecting unemployment insurance, you're hired, you do need to notify EDD that you have been hired. And then, as you might imagine, benefits are eliminated, or they may be reduced depending on what how much you're working in this new job. So that's an important point. And there is a provision in California unemployment in which you can work a certain number of hours. If your hours are small enough, you can still collect UI. So that's aimed mainly at lower wage workers, but it is worth looking at if you are hired, but your hours are very, very small.
Right. How many hours is that typically?
I don't know offhand. It really depends on, like so much of unemployment is insurance. It's a complex formula. I just want to set it out there in the sense that some people, may be hired, but for, 5 or 6 hours a month or 10 hours a month. And they may still be able to collect unemployment assistance if their income is low enough.
Definitely. And I think that relates to a question I got actually from an unemployment support group on Facebook. I know that people who are having problems with their claims. Oh no. Sorry, I think I was frozen there. A lot of times people who are having problems with their claims look to social media like for support and to get answers. So I, in the course of just my reporting, had joined a bunch of these groups where people ask questions, and which means here people with mixed income types get better wage assessments in the near term. She was saying that over 1 million people who are hybrid mixed income type signed a petition because their unemployment benefits were much lower than what they qualified for on W-2 form. Or will they get more clarity or an improved assessment anytime soon, do you think?
I'm not quite sure I understand that, but let me say one question that has arisen concerning people who may be independent contractors, like Uber drivers or others whose main income comes from independent contracting and may have had a W-2 job within the previous 18 months because it's that previous 18-month period. And they find that they're not receiving that much because their W-2 job was so low. If you had any W-2 income in the previous 18 months of filing a claim, your claim linked to that rather than, even if your income as an independent contractor was far larger. It's one of the many quirks of the system, basically.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people who had mixed income types have been really frustrated about the way that's all calculated. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if there are any changes on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Carolyn, because they can often, their income as an independent contractor can often be much, much higher, but their award amount will be tied to the smaller W-2 amount.
Yeah. Okay, another question from Layla was about the new ID verification process in California. She was wondering, can the new ID verification process be streamlined so people don't have to wait 6 weeks for clearance?
Well, it shouldn't have to wait 6 weeks. I'm surprised to hear that. You know, the whole point of ID Verify is to expedite the process, to be able to allow people to upload documents and confirm identity more quickly. EDD's website shows the number of backlog claims to be reduced sharply over the past three weeks. So it seems to be helping there. Hopefully, I don't know, again, each of these cases in UI are different, but it should be a process that the whole point of the ID Verify is to speed up this process of identity and getting benefits out.
Right, because that had unfortunately been quite a big problem in California. I know it caused a lot of backlogs on people's applications. Basically, like there were so many issues with people having, some people having their identities stolen, some people's identities unable to be verified, that people had to wait a really long time. And the EDD was even shut down at one point, basically, to address that. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes, the system was shut down for 2 weeks, didn't accept any new applications while it worked through this implementation of Verify.
I have a kind of more general question, which is about sort of the job market during this period where many people are unemployed. We have someone asking, what should new college graduates do when most places that hire want years of experience? And do you think COVID will change the hiring process in terms of interviewing? And do you think it'll make it harder for new college grads? I know, personally, people who just graduated college who are immediately unemployed and can't find jobs. I know statistically it's really hard to find a job right now. Do you have any thoughts on that, Michael?
I do, Carolyn. My youngest daughter just graduated from UC Berkeley. So this was in May. So she has all these ideas on what, going into this government job or this, she's interested in public policy. So I said, just get something, what are known in the employment field as lifeboat jobs. What I encourage a lot of people to do, and what she had done, she's got a part-time job at Starbucks and a part-time job at Amazon. And my view is at this particular time, you want to grab any job you can. So even if your career goal is to be in government or be in marketing. You want to grab anything. The job market is so tight now, that you know, companies in the past couple months may be bringing back some of their former employees, but hiring is way down. Job postings in California way down. So I encourage people, and especially young people, to just take anything, get whatever you can, and then hold on. The so-called lifeboat approach.
Totally. I know that's probably not what a lot of people want to hear, but just in terms of practical advice makes a lot of sense. And I also want to, again, invite people who have questions to please ask them in the chat. Really appreciate all the questions we've gotten so far. As far as, you know, back to this question of another stimulus or congressional action in California in terms of people getting additional benefits, do you think that there will be more extensions for people to file more claims after this drop off on the 26th? And in California in particularly, do you have any thoughts or ideas about whether people will be able to file or to extend their claims because, you know, things are still tough?
I think there's a likelihood that the PUA will be extended. So that again, we're talking about roughly 750,000, an estimate just here in California. For people on regular UI, whether they're, as I mentioned, you know, people will be allowed, even those who filed in March will continue basically to next April or May. And there may be an extension beyond that, though. I think hopefully the economy will have picked up or start picking up more by then. So I think the big action may be with PUA. I guess the other question is, will the new Congress add any of the restore at least, or restore part of that $600 supplement?
Right. That helps
regular people were receiving.
Yeah.
And my sense is that there'll be some compromise reached.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question sort of zooming out of California here. Do you, how does California compare to other states in terms of their unemployment benefits? And if you have a sense of this, Michael, which no worries if it's outside of your scope, how does the US compare to other places in terms of unemployment right now?
Well, in terms of benefits, of course, here in California, our weekly benefits go from $45 a week to $450 a week. $450 is the maximum. It's not the highest among states, but it's you know, somewhat in the middle in that amount.
Where is the highest, actually?
Where is what?
Where is the highest?
You know, I don't know. I suspect it's you know, New York or New Jersey or one of the eastern states. I have to. It's been years since I've looked that up. But there are states that have a higher amount than us. But we're up there. So, you know, I think in that sense, California, you know, but the cost of living in California is also higher. So it's a sort of ongoing discussion. It's a system, I should emphasize, that's paid for out of basically employer taxes, or taxes on employees. And so you always want to balance perhaps increasing the amount, but do you want to, especially at the current time, increase taxes on employers here in California? That would seem to be the last thing we'd sort of need.
That makes sense. I actually have a question. I don't know how much you've thought about this, but now that Prop 22 passed in California, how is that going to impact unemployment for Uber, Lyft drivers, and other gig workers? Because those companies don't have to pay into unemployment.
Well, it won't. Its employment impacts are only going to be positive. In other words, if it hadn't passed, Uber and Lyft were looking at cutting it, basically 70 or 80% of its drivers. Now, the important thing that I think is often missed in the public discussion of Uber and Lyft is that over 80% of these drivers do this as for supplement income. They work less than 20 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So for most people, Uber and Lyft is a way of supplementing income to either independent contracting income or other W-2 income. So from an employment point of view, Prop 22 passes, it actually increases the opportunities especially during this time for people to earn income. And that's what we're seeing. People, even though Uber and Lyft, the demand for drivers is down, the demand for some of the deliveries, food delivery and others is up. And it's a way that people have been able to very quickly, without a lot of bureaucracy, without a lot of time. You want to make extra income, you just get onto the app.
Mm-hmm.
So from that employment, it's very positive. I
know for a lot of people who do work full time with Uber and Lyft, it is tough though, and generally because it's hard to make a lot of money, and they often work, I think, really long hours. And I know that they also Uber and Lyft don't pay into the unemployment fund. So now I guess I was just wondering, they will continue to not pay into the unemployment fund? That doesn't have an impact, right, with Prop 22?
Well, they won't be paying into the unemployment fund, but they are offering other benefits in terms of health and insurance and other benefits. And it's not like they're withdrawing from the unemployment fund. They haven't paid before. So,
right.
And depending on what happens with pandemic unemployment assistance, any of the Uber and Lyft drivers who can show that their income was impacted negatively by the pandemic will be able, if PUA is extended, they will be able to collect.
Yeah, that the PUA is really good. That it's good that it exists for people who are working those jobs and are out of work. We have a question about someone who said they've been unemployed for a long period of time. What advice would you have to someone who is newly unemployed or has been unemployed for a long time and wants to start the process of getting or setting up unemployment benefits?
Well, if they've been unemployed for some time and they haven't set up benefits, in one sense, no problem. They haven't lost anything. You don't have to apply within, say, a certain amount of time, but you have to go on EDD's website and set up a UI account and go through the application process. But I think the important point is that there isn't a time limitation. If they haven't applied, you can apply at any time and go back to a certain amount. So if they were unemployed 2 months ago and they haven't filed, they can still file now.
And I know sometimes people with a limited work history can have difficulty applying. Why is that, and what advice might you have for those folks?
Well, again, up until the PUA program, you needed to be a W-2 worker, and you need to have earned over a certain amount, though it's not a very large amount. But you need to be, and that's why people who were either independent contractors or had no right to work papers were not able to collect. Now, obviously, with PUA, we do have people able to collect.
Definitely.
Possibly continue. Carolyn, I'm going to have to drop off here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say we're approaching the end here. So any final questions? Let me just take a look at the chat here to see if we have any final questions coming in. And then I have maybe just one or two more here. We have someone saying that they had a tough time with PUA because they only got 10 weeks. Let's see. We have a question here about what do you foresee when the benefits end in December in terms of housing and evictions? What kinds of protections are proposed for unemployed if they stay unemployed?
Yeah, I haven't really followed, Carolyn, the housing. I know the state legislature has been involved. Some of the counties, my county, San Francisco, is set up. I think people have to check on what the eviction protections are on the county level,
Mm-hmm.
and any state ones. But I think there's, as I say, I would keep coming back to, I think there's a good chance that the PUA will be extended in some form.
I think that's one little bit of good news here
Yes.
for people is I myself am happy to hear that. I think that is a really good thing. I know that in Alameda County, we're talking like super local here in the Bay Area, Alameda County did extend their eviction moratorium. I know San Francisco extended theirs. I'm not sure about other parts in the country. I mean, there is some mortgage relief for people who have federally backed mortgages, which is a big percentage of people with mortgages. But as far as renters, it is generally tougher. Michael, as a last question here, any advice for people moving forward, general advice for people dealing with unemployment and the lingering uncertainty that comes with that?
Well, you just have to, individually, the best thing you can do is manage your account, check it regularly, make sure that there are no outstanding questions from ADD. On these bigger issues, you can always contact your representative. Again, hopefully we'll have some action after Thanksgiving in terms of possible extension of PUA. But check your account. And frankly, Carolyn, I'd say is the final word. There's no good way of describing what's been occurring over the past 6 months. The system has been completely overwhelmed. Everyone I know, the bad news is everyone I know has had these delays, months delays. The good news is that everyone I know, if you hang in there, the money does come.
Yeah.
So there is a resolution. But this has been great. I've enjoyed it. And,
well, yeah, great having you on. And thank you so much to everyone who asked questions too. I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much.